Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. Today we have a very exciting panel in front of us. We're here at the OpenStack Summit in Vancouver, which is particularly exciting for me, as this used to be a hometown for me for a while. And we've got a great community that's here celebrating now the 12th release and all of the work that's come into it from a lot of different angles. So I'm very proud to be able to present the team I've got in front of me here. For those who don't know me, my name is Eric Wright. I'm usually found as @DiscoPosti on Twitter. I'm the technology evangelist for VMTurbo. And my VMTurbo team is proudly sponsoring the vBrownbag here, and it's a big part of our general community and why we wanted to be here today. So we've got some great gentlemen here. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself along the line, and then we can get rolling.
Sure. My name is John Engates. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Rackspace, and as you probably know, Rackspace has a big role to play in the early stages of OpenStack. We've been around since the beginning. We were one of the founding members and take a lot of pride in the work that we do every day within the OpenStack community. We've got lots of people here, PTLs, contributors, people, obviously also marketing and sales folks, but just a really big presence, and we love OpenStack, obviously, big contributors and supporters.
Excellent.
Great. Hi, I'm Stu Miniman. I'm a senior analyst with Wikibon, which is a research and analyst firm, and I'm also a co-host of theCUBE. Thanks for having me on. I love the vBrownbag stuff. We feel kind of similar message, helping to educate the community and go out there. If you're not familiar, Wikibon, we create a lot of research. Most of it is free to consume. We allow IT practitioners to share with their peers. And on theCUBE, we go out to all the big enterprise IT shows and some of the small ones too, help extract the signal from the noise. Love get to an event like here at OpenStack, get to talk to lots of the PTLs, founders of small companies, people in big companies. I had the pleasure of interviewing John last year, wow, Vancouver. I wish I could say I'd lived here before, because it's my first time here, and I've fallen in love with this place.
Excellent.
Andres Scharo. I'm the VP for Advanced Solutions Development at VMTurbo, and I basically run an R&D team, but really the focus of the team is to work with our large enterprise customers, especially early adopters of new technologies. A lot of conversations about OpenStack adoptions for the past couple of years. My team has been developing both how our software is helping these OpenStack customers and adopters to take advantage of it and control it better in their environment, but also we are contributing a lot of code over the past couple of years to various OpenStack projects to improve the instrumentation, improve the control, and especially the conversation I'm having with our customers are super exciting about how well and how quickly they are, or how increasingly fast they adopt OpenStack. It's super exciting to see a lot of the same people showing up, especially on this summit, and see that they are a lot more serious at a large scale enterprise financial service providers picking up and running this in production at growing numbers, and to get the feedback from them about their success.
Excellent. One of the big focuses for me is in watching this come. A couple of years ago, I was working with some of the team from vBrownbag, Cody Bunch, who of course is a Rackspace.
He's a racker.
He is a racker. That's right. We are rackers.
Racker and a stacker.
And I got exposure to OpenStack early on. For me, which I was effectively late to the game to where OpenStack was. Even at that time, we were already it was already well down the road. And yet I was, seen as kind of part of the early adopter crew, and then here we are again, a couple of years later, and people are starting to see what it was that I was doing, and I was then, seeing what Cody was doing and what other folks in the industry were doing, And in 2 years now, we will be the next generation of people that have driven it sort of to this next level. So it's interesting, and that's really what I wanted to start with is evolution. How has OpenStack evolved as far as you've seen, as a product, as an ecosystem, as a community, and how have you seen OpenStack evolve as how you've been involved in it? And maybe John, we'll get started with you.
Yeah. So again, our history with OpenStack is the very beginning. Back in 2010, we had sort of a vision of taking the software that we were running, our storage, cloud storage. Swift was our project. And we wanted to get that out into the open source community to give every cloud, everybody the access to build a cloud, whether it be a big public cloud like we were operating, or a private enterprise cloud, or even just a university sort of research cloud. We knew people wanted this technology, and we knew at the time that it really wasn't readily available. There were people scratching at the edges of what a cloud was, and some companies trying to portray their software as cloud. But OpenStack, from our point of view, was something that we needed to really run our business. We needed access to that great technology, and we knew that it was better in a community form. We were always big proponents of open source, big users of open source, and we knew it was going to be more successful if we were all taking a stake in this and having a role to play versus trying to control it and smother it. And so I think it's evolved a great deal since then. I mean, the first summit we had, 70 people, something like that, and those were all really kind of the insiders of a lot of the vendors. And then the second, third summit, every time it's gotten bigger. I mean, in some cases it's doubled these conferences.
Wow.
From one 6-month period. I don't think it's going to double at this stage, but it's really exciting to see the community around it. Also the vendors that have really, I watch the monitors at the conference and look at who's advertising, who's taking the OpenStack and making a core pillar of their product offering, and it's really the who's who of IT. I mean, you really can count on one hand the people that are not taking a big stake and role in OpenStack, and I think it's an amazing, I guess in 5 years' time it's been an amazing run, and I think the best years of OpenStack are ahead of it, which is really, really cool.
Stu, what are your thoughts on OpenStack and how you've seen things evolve?
Yeah, so definitely it's great to build off of what John was just talking about. We're 5 years in, and OpenStack's come a really, really long way. I think back to when it first started, it was right around the time that I first became an analyst. And we were still kind of arguing over what this whole cloud thing is, and there was no true cloud but the public cloud. Gosh, Randy Bias said that. He's working for EMC today. Love Randy. Interviewed him here at the conference. The whole maturation of what's been going on has changed a lot. My boss, Dave Vellante, actually said the early days was, this was the desperate effort of traditional IT to stay relevant in the days of Amazon. And look where it is today. It's very different. And some of the early players was, oh, we're going to save you money by getting away with your VMware licenses. There's still some discussion of that, but it's a totally different conversation. It's the how does IT deliver value to the business and allow me to move faster and change the way I'm doing things, because here's the problem we have. IT doesn't do things the best way they can. It's we have a saying we like saying is friends don't let friends build new data centers. There's stuff that IT does because they think they have to, but there's a better way to do it. And I love a show like this because you've got people that are breaking glass and trying new things, and it's a little tough sometimes, but it's maturing. So to the maturity of OpenStack, if most things in IT happen in like a decade, and those first 5 years are really hard, especially open source. We look how long it took Linux to go from this cool thing that I know people used in the background in lots of ways. When I used to talk to enterprises and you'd say, do you use Linux? Back in like 2000. They're like, no, we don't use Linux. And then the guy on the side was like, no, Bill's doing Linux on like this stuff there. And then it slowly seeped in. Could you imagine IT today without Linux? Linux is everywhere. All your websites run it. Google wouldn't exist. It is just fundamental to everything we do. Right. I think OpenStack's going to be that same for kind of the foundation of what's going on. You've got all these different projects. I think now we're actually going to be able to define with powered by OpenStack and Big Tent what is OpenStack, because I tell you, I spent a lot of years in the storage world. You talk to most of the storage companies, say, are you doing OpenStack? And they say yes. And say, well, explain what that means and explain what that means to the customers, and boy, you get a lot of different answers. And everybody agrees and understands that that's a problem, and we're solving it. I love Mark Collier in the keynote yesterday said that what is OpenStack? Today's an integration engine. And I think that's a great place for it to be, because it's not the be-all, end-all, one thing to rule all. It is what's going to help, take things in, containerization, hot, new, awesome thing that, that they're going to play with it. Underlying, it doesn't eliminate hardware. Everything needs to live somewhere in a physical location and on physical things with, virtualization, software, and everything on top of it. So I think we're finally understanding what this cool stuff is that we have. Huge proponent of open source, and it's come a long way. And I forget to mention the intro. If people still use the Twitter thing, I'm easy to find. I'm at Stu. And
I'm at Jen Gates.
Yeah, J.N. Gates, so real easy.
So actually tagging on a couple of things that both of you guys mentioned, I think what is most amazing to me is that, so we've been involved in OpenStack since probably 2012, and the conversation I had a couple of years ago were a lot about how do I build this and how do I put the components together. So what is really amazing to me, especially over the course of the last year, that conversation shifted from, instead of discussing how do I build this, to what are the use cases that I can deliver that I have not been able to deliver with my existing virtual infrastructure. And really it's about how do I enable my IT department to be more agile, how do I service developers better instead of being bogged down in creating VMs, even being bogged down with managing the underlying infrastructure. I think most of the conversation I'm having about what are the things that we can enable, and OpenStack becomes this platform that creates an opportunity for these discussions, and at the same time, these conversations are driving innovation in OpenStack, both around open source contribution as well as partner or vendor integrations, in a couple of ways, stretching the vendor capabilities, in other ways are driving them to actually do better, to scale better, to do things faster. And I think those conversations are really interesting because then it actually moves beyond, what drivers I'm using to what I'm actually enabling our respective businesses to accomplish on this platform. And I think it's definitely going to be pervasive in that sense, but it's bigger than just being a platform. It's an enabler of delivering agile applications.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah. And a point that I always, pick on is we label it. We've got a very open, media in a way that we're a part of media today. We're on Twitter. We can have open opinions, and everybody does that, and we'll see a lot of sort of, ideas on, where is OpenStack. People say, well, I don't necessarily see the value, and that may be true. Like I said, use case is the biggest driver. We've suddenly realized that businesses are making these use cases that are driving the need for cloud consumption. Now, is it going to be public clouds? If OpenStack didn't exist, yes, but OpenStack has been an enabler. Is it going to upend AWS? That's not its goal. That's not what it's going to do. But it's a great enabler of that same concept. The classic thing I always hear is the science project, and we get this all the time. Well, the OpenStack is a science project. Well, so is Tesla. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, tread carefully, you're going to be seeing a Tesla battery in the back of your apartment or house soon, and you're going to see those things. So all this idea that it's not ready and this evolution is too far, it's too far in the future. Be careful. While we're denying that OpenStack exists, it's going to become pervasive in what businesses do because they have a real requirement to do.
Well, I mean, when Amazon sort of created public cloud, people dismissed it too. They said that's never going to be ready for enterprise IT. That's never going to be capable of hosting my applications.
That's right.
Little did they know that applications would be rewritten very rapidly to take advantage of the new technology. And within enterprises, they have that same challenge. They need to attract the right kind of talent to their team to go build those really cool user experiences. It's mobile apps, it's Internet of Things, it's social, it's data, it's all of the things that companies are going to have to harness and get good at to continue to exist, because you have to become a software company in the future to be relevant to your consumers. You have to become an innovation company that's churning out really cool modern experiences that customers are going to demand. I mean, you're seeing very rapidly the old experiences. Uber is a great example. The old experiences of a taxi are dying rapidly. The new experience of a car share service are replacing it very rapidly. That same thing is going to happen in lots of different industries. And OpenStack, cloud, whatever you want to call it. I mean, OpenStack is the form that a lot of companies are comfortable with today because it's close enough to what they've been doing, but far enough that they give the developers that experience. But they're going to have to attract those developers, and OpenStack has been a great way to show and demonstrate that our enterprise is modern, our enterprise is agile, our enterprise is capable of doing the cool new stuff with the big boys out there, and you know, it's a necessary thing nowadays. I mean, I think that's why you're seeing these big users on stage, super users or whatever you want to call them. They need to show the world that they are doing interesting things, or else their best talent will go to where the interesting things are.
Right.
Yeah, and if you look at it, buying a product is kind of easy, but it doesn't necessarily move your business forward and make you more agile. It's tougher when it's a platform. And here's, API enabled, here's a platform with a bunch of different tools and you can build whatever you want. When Amazon first came out with, it's like, EC2 and EBS and everything else, building an app there wasn't easy, but once you've done it, it was like, wow, I've got a lot of flexibility and there's other things I can tie into. OpenStack does a lot of the same things. It's funny, you think back to kind of social media when it first started, when you get into Facebook or Twitter and it's like, what are you doing or what do you do? It's like, wait, what do I do with this?
Yes.
And it's like,
that first tweet,
what
are you doing?
Yeah, trying it out, eating a ham sandwich, something like that. But where it can take you is like, wow, it's like open. As we said, it used to be a website was great when it's like, I want to go book an airline ticket. I know exactly what I click and where I do. But if we say, here's a platform and it's got APIs and it's extensible to everything you can do, it's like, the world is your oyster. Go do it. And you've got companies that are going to help guide you and give you use cases, because we need some things that are repeatable and easy to do. Right. But if I can be part of it and contribute to it and create with it, it's really powerful. And that's the transformative nature we have in IT today.
And it brings up an interesting one, and we'll start with Andrew in this one, because as I came out of the customer side of things in financial and insurance and health services and all sorts of interesting verticals, and Andrew, you've got a background there as well. And this is the enterprise shift. And my thing that I always tag, and I'll have it in a small presentation later, is that your bank has more developers than your hypervisor vendor, and that's what we have to accept. That this is the shift in business is happening. Enterprises, now granted, that's a large scale enterprise, and maybe SMBs and mid-grade enterprises aren't necessarily there yet, but they're making that move. And Andrew, as a background in a variety of financial services and other areas, how did you see, now from the other side of the fence, our enterprise customers and their ability to embrace it and their awareness of what OpenStack is and what it can do?
Yeah, so it's super exciting. It's because this shift that we were discussing about use cases and how do you enable your IT to take advantage of this is also a shift in terms of focusing less on the underlying plumbing. Yes, you do need the plumbing, you do need the hardware, but the focus is shifting to what is it that you deliver, and the people that you deliver to is especially your developers. So the financial institution I previously worked for had 8,000 technology people. Out of that, 6,000 were developers. And that was the whole thing was about 1/3 of the company. So that's a pretty big number for the financial services, but it's pretty typical among other financials as well. And really the question is not how do I entertain the 2,000 infrastructure guys, how do I enable the 6,000 developers is really the question. The use cases that I mentioned earlier is really what you want to provide to them. For example, is differentiated services across the shared infrastructure, and what it enables them to do is, instead of having to worry about the number of vCPUs and the amount of gigabyte that they think that they should allocate, they really focus on what is the level of service they need to deliver, and then rely on a platform that offers them that differentiated capability without having to worry about what the underlying infrastructure is. And also shifting the people who actually deliver this from trying to figure out, what is the right RAID group configuration that I need on my controller to, this is the service I need to provide. I can swap out the vendors. I can change my volume implementation. I can change my hardware behind my Nova compute. This is what I'm delivering. And it gives them that flexibility to focus on what they need to deliver instead of the choices they have to make on the plumbing.
And one thing that highlights a big thing about commoditization. We talk about the commoditization of things, hardware, network, et cetera, and it gets a negative connotation because we think of it as making it cheap. it's not that we make it cheap, it's that we make it easier to consume and get access to, and that's really an ideal case. Now, you gents have obviously got an interesting view on two sides of things. Now, Stu, as an analyst and folks that you've talked to in the Cube and around the shows, how's your view on who you're talking to, and is this sort of shift in enterprise awareness of OpenStack?
Yeah, so let's talk about the infrastructure for a bit, because first of all, the whole role of infrastructure is to deliver your applications. And what I don't want is to be spending so much time, turning the geek knobs and optimizing, this kind of bespoke silo. I spent a lot of time in the converged infrastructure space over years. I mean, think back to early Blade servers. What server virtualization did is say, I don't really worry so much about the server itself. Now, I might have changed the hardware configuration and moved things around, but it did free me some. If I can move to a platform where the infrastructure components underneath can change, that's better. Now, you got to be careful, because you talk about commoditization. It's not that hardware doesn't matter, because what really matters is you have a stack that works and is reliable, and integration is a really tough point. I talked to plenty of customers that are doing Supermicro or the ODMs and stuff like Quanta and everything, and getting the right configuration and hardening that. Somebody has to do that work. It's not free. It's not like you just say, hey, I just go buy from the ODMs and it's really cheap and it's going to work. No, stuff's going to break. And that's the hard work that somewhere needs to be done. And do I write the application so that software runs on of it? I call what Amazon does, they hyper-optimize. They build an application, they build data centers full of the exact same configuration that lives in one data center, and that's theirs. So there's hard work that needs to be done somewhere, and we want to harden that. So OpenStack gives us a platform, that integration engine that underneath, from a southbound standpoint, might be able to change. I might be able to buy some lower margin stuff. And heck, all the big players that are here see that shift. So anybody that thinks that I can make lots of margin on specialized hardware, things have changed. Open source is putting in here, and it's going to put an impact on them, and there's that shift. But there's no such thing as a free lunch when it comes to IT. Somebody needs to do the work. I want to make sure from every layer of the stack that it works, it's reliable. When something goes wrong, who fixes it? It's not like we can just have an IT generalist that says, oops, we had some problem, somebody has to go fix it. No, this is stuff that runs our businesses, and that's where we need to go.
You, Eric, used a term earlier, science project, and you referred to that as something that people think about as OpenStack. Well, so I was listening to you guys, I was sort of thinking about IT in general. There's a lot of science project in how people have built IT. The idea of the configuring RAID groups and tuning and tweaking, and that's science project stuff, and that's because there's a lot of geeks like me in IT that love to work on that kind of stuff. But the truth is, when you think about it from the consumer's perspective, the consumer maybe being the developer who wants to build something, they're in a different layer of the stack, they're in a different world, they live in a place where they don't really value the getting under the hood and tweaking and tuning as much. Somebody's got to be under the hood, but it doesn't have to be everybody. And I think historically IT has sort of forced everybody to be in that position. I mean, I think of analogies all the time. In automobiles, cars, there are car guys that love to get under the hood. There are other people that just want to drive a nice Honda to work every day, and reliable, and don't really want to know what's under that hood. I think the commodity hardware, commodity components, storage, networking, certainly can be a part of what's under the hood. You can make that work. You do have to have some people that are willing to do the testing and do the work to get there. I think the software that OpenStack is something that's designed around the idea of commoditized hardware, cheaper hardware from a reliability standpoint. We don't necessarily have to have gold-plated, redundant, reliable everything everywhere, which is how IT used to be. It had to be, HA everything. Well, if your software can withstand some of those failures, then maybe you don't need HA everywhere, but you still have to make conscious decisions, and people have to understand why you made those decisions, and it has to work together. And so I agree, it's a system you're building.
Oh yeah, and you bring up a great point, because in IT sometimes you've got those superhero firefighters that can go out and they can fix anything. In the hyperscale guys, they don't have as many infrastructure people, and they want to let the software take care of it. You know, you want your superheroes to be able to work on, you know, the new business deployment that can make you new money, get new applications, leverage new data, do some things, not keep the things up and running. I said that the cardinal sin in IT, I've heard well before I was an analyst, it's like, you know, we spend, you know, what, 80+% of our budget on keeping the lights on. Yeah. For a CIO today, you know, running the business, we need to lower those costs. Growing the business is where we need to go, and really transforming the business is where we want to take things. So we need, you know, platforms and tools and the whole API economy to help drive us there.
So we're winding down. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. This is a great insight. You know, definitely. Hopefully we can recap in Austin, and maybe we can kind of revisit where things have gone, and we'll see that it's a great opportunity. So we've done some work here as well at VMTurbo. We actually kind of went out and built a big survey around, you know, how do you view OpenStack, and we've got a lot of, you know, enterprises, small to medium business, all this range. And it was interesting, the data that came up around it was a lot of interest, you know, where we wouldn't necessarily have expected. If we ran the same survey 6 months ago, 18 months ago, for sure, you know, it would have been vastly different. So we're actually going to share that, and we're going to open source the data. We'll fire it up onto our GitHub page. We'll get details around that. And the cool thing is we're here with a common theme. We want to share the story. We want to share our experiences. Super User Awards are great because it really promotes that ecosystem. So, you know, thank you all for coming today. Thank you to the vBrownbag crew and to everybody who's, you know, in attendance, and you know, the community is strong, and we're very proud to be a part of it. So thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.